Hiring America, the award-winning television job fair for American veterans. Connecting you with companies who know your value. Learn about employers who are actively hiring today and organizations that support veterans. Your future success starts right here on Hiring America.
We're here at the Society for Human Resource Management annual conference and exposition in Washington, D.C. with a group of HR professionals who will be engaging with conference attendees, sharing social strategies and solutions for personal and professional use. We're joined by Dr. Woody Woodward, an organizational psychologist, Renee Robson, an HR professional from Australia, and Carol McDaniel, Director of Talent Acquisition at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's great to be here.
What advice would you give to a member of the military that's in the process of transitioning but isn't sure what career to pursue in the civilian workforce?
It's like anything, you got to do your homework, right? You got to step back and think about what you've done in the past that you really enjoyed and what can you do moving forward in the civilian world that you can match up your skills and your passions with. And so many different things out there that it's a matter of kind of honing in on some of those that you really are most passionate about and finding those industries and those jobs that maybe will allow you to continue to flourish.
Carol, tell us about your military experience and what the transition was like for you.
So I had the fortunate opportunity to serve 10 years in the United States Air Force, and I really enjoyed my time there. And I was coming from a time when I wasn't in a war zone, I didn't come from a combat area, just kind of a regular girl transitioning out of the military. What I hoped to be an easy transition really turned out to be somewhat difficult. The perception of military members, female or male, coming out of the military was one that not very flexible, a little rigid, couldn't necessarily assimilate as we should. I was scrutinized for what I knew or what I didn't know about the civilian sector, and ultimately at the end of the interview they didn't want to select me for the position because they felt like I wouldn't be able to assimilate to the civilian workforce. After some back and forth and going to him and saying, gosh, I've lived in third world countries, I've been shot at, I've shot people, how is it that I can't be very flexible? Ultimately they called me back and said, you might be a better fit than we thought, so we'd love to have you join our company. But I'll tell you, since then it has really been my mission to help veterans make an easier transition, and those who especially have a more difficult time than I did when I transitioned many years back.
Look, the reality is, in a war zone, right, in any kind of military, even in training, you have to do everything. You become an entrepreneur. I mean, and even in some cases when you're in a third world country, you have to completely adapt to a new way of living, a new way of life. And in companies, all they talk about today is being innovative, ideas, growth. That's the world the military lives in, right?
So can a veteran job seeker pick up the phone without an interview lined up and say, I would love to come to your company and shadow for a day?
I've been working with some groups locally who are open to that because they want to understand that person and they want to understand how their organization works.
I think being open to the fact that people are willing to help, and if you put yourself out there and you say, hey, look, I'm not asking you for a job, I'm not asking you to give me anything, can I buy you a coffee and spend half an hour and hear about your job and what the norms are and what you do, people are more than willing to do that, I find.
So after the veteran job seeker has landed the interview, what's the next step? The interview.
The dirty little secret is that most interviewers, hiring managers conducting interviews, are really bad at doing interviews. Most aren't trained for it. They rarely do any prep. They might not even know about it until maybe a half hour ahead of time. So use this opportunity to own the interview. It's your interview, so you drive it. Know a strong set of talking points that you could fall back on, because the interviewers are going to ask some weird, wacky questions that make no sense. You've got to be ready to take that and kind of pivot with it and say, all right, how do I tell my narrative? How do I answer that question but weave in the story I want to tell about myself? And I think that's the most important thing to prep before going into an interview.
Once you've landed the job, after you pass the interview, how do you ensure that it's a comfortable, smooth transition for both parties?
The onboarding process is really important. And again, this is another place where most companies drop the ball. So it's got to be on you to really figure out how do you onboard yourself. And by that I mean, all right, figure out who do you talk to in the organization. I'm always a big fan of do a listening tour. spend time asking questions and listening to what they do, how they operate, to get a sense of where you fit in and where you add value before you start telling and kind of showcasing your skills. Hear everyone out first so you don't overwhelm them or assert yourself in the wrong place.
I think another good point is we have made a commitment to providing mentors to help bring veterans into the organization. So at Johns Hopkins, for example, all the employees, the veterans today, and I'm being one of them, we partner with incoming and onboarding veterans to help them understand, not just how the business gets done, but how to make it easier for them. I think that's really important.
Take it up on yourself to find someone that can be a mentor that's maybe in the same industry but not at the same company. So you can flat out ask them, hey, is this normal? These people talking about things that, is acceptable, or what should I do here? And that they can give you an honest answer, and it's not going to then reflect on your relationships in the workplace.
And Carol, is there also a benefit for veteran employees to be able to connect with veteran employees on the job as well?
Oh my gosh, tremendous benefit to the employee. And in my world, not only is recruitment very important, but retention is important, because the last thing you want to do is spend all the time onboarding and bringing someone into the organization only to have them be not happy because they don't have a mentor, they don't have a friend at work, so to speak. So definitely very, very important.
There was a great book called Never Eat Alone, and I'm a big believer in that. Never go to lunch alone, never get coffee in the morning alone. Make sure you're spending time, grab somebody so you can get that downtime to have conversations and learn sort of the language of the company, because it's just so valuable to take that time and to get a feel for them. And remember, most relationships at work are very transactional. You need something, you go to someone, they need something, they come to you. So take time where you don't need something from someone. You can just talk. I think it's a good way to kind of get yourself settled in.
And I would say, as a former veteran and a former military member that transitioned, be very confident. You are extremely educated, extremely talented. You have so much value to bring to an organization. Don't diminish that. Don't be nervous. Don't be shy to sell yourself. That's the hardest thing people do that are not transitioning from the military. You've got to be confident in who you are and what you bring to the organization. And you will interview them as much as they will interview you, because it has to be a good fit for both.